Welcome top news today.
For Ivanka Trump, the evening of November 28 was supposed to be the culmination of nearly 6 months of careful planning, both political and personal. In late June, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had flown to Washington, D.C., for an official state visit with President Donald Trump that included a meet-and-greet with American CEOs, a tour of the Indian-American diaspora in Northern Virginia, and a wide-ranging White House conversation that touched on immigration, Pakistan, defense alliances, the changing locus of power in the Indo-Pacific region, and various pleasantries and vagaries surrounding the countries' strategic relationship. The two leaders will look to outline a common vision for the partnership that's worthy of India's 1.6 billion citizens, noted Sean Spicer, then the White House press secretary, incorrectly inflating the country's actual population by nearly 300 million people. Trump and Modi's meeting was consummated by a gropey man hug. And, as if to further seal their union, before he had even returned to New Delhi, Modi invited Ivanka Trump, 36, to speak at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad that winter. Modi, it seemed, was following an emerging playbook for dealing with the Trump administration. Given the nearly indecipherable actor occupying the West Wing, various foreign dignitaries, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, have demonstrated the support for the United States government not only by meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago at Trump Tower, or humoring his affinity for larger-scale billboard imagery of himself, but also through lavish displays of flattery directed at his favorite child, who also happens to be among his top advisors. The Hyderabad invitation would be Ivanka Trump's third solo trip abroad on behalf of the administration since she officially took a governmental position as a special assistant to her dad last March, 1 year ago. The sun rises and sets with Ivanka, one person close to the White House told me recently. These guys saw it clear as day, and whether they thought it would help them better understand the guy, or get them in good with him, they were right. The Global Entrepreneurship Summit did not disappoint. After landing at Rajiv Gandhi International Airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, Ivanka was ushered to her hotel by a phalanx of 17 vehicles, 10,000 members of the police, and representatives of various local media outlets, some of whom dubbed the trip a royal visit. Hyderabad, sometimes labeled Cyberabad, for the specific area of the city where various technology companies Google, Microsoft, Facebook have set up offices, had spruced itself up for her 36 hours while potholes were filled, roads were repaved. Ivanka's likeness adorned billboards throughout the city. Authorities brought in closed-circuit security cameras and sniffer dogs. Schools were shut down owing to the exacerbated traffic congestion. Workers placed welcoming swan statues beside roadways that the first daughter might traverse. Hundreds of people stopped by a local market to pose for selfies next to an Ivanka mannequin. Trump emerged from the 18-hour flight and subsequent car transport ready for the occasion. She wore hair extensions in a dry bar-style loose wave. Her traveling makeup artist seemed to have amply applied highlighter on her cheekbones upon touchdown. She also made a post-flight wardrobe change into a $1,298 velvet Tory Burch jacket adorned with mother-of-pearl sequins, embroidery, and beads, in the style of traditional Indian prints. It was a sartorial nod to Hyderabad, which had historically been known as the City of Pearls. The summit's theme, Women First, Prosperity for All, dovetailed with the narrow agenda of women's issues that Trump had carved out for herself, first on the campaign trail and then in the administration. Her keynote speech touted a commitment to female entrepreneurs, like herself. After my father's election, I saw an opportunity to leave my businesses for the privilege of serving our country and empowering all Americans, including women, to succeed, she said. Our administration is advancing policies that enable women to pursue their careers and care for the families, policies that improve workforce development and skills training, and policies that lift government barriers and fuel entrepreneurship so that Americans can turn their dreams into their incredible legacies. Prime Minister Modi called the event wonderful, and the Indian media mostly ate it up too. One local fashion critic referred to Trump favorably as an Indian Barbie doll. Back in the US, however, Trump was critiqued for her sartorial assimilation. Dailyo, an Indian opinion website, referred to her as a Botoxed Barbie. The most stinging rebuke came from a New York Times article about Trump's decision to wear clothes made for the most part by American designers. In the piece, published the day after her departure from India, a spokesperson for Tory Birch pointed out that the brand did not work with Ivanka Trump at all. Privately, according to 3 people familiar with the situation, Birch had also made comments about Ivanka's decision to wear her brand in such a public setting. According to a spokesperson, Birch was not involved in the public comment in the Times piece. Much as Trump relishes her role in the White House, she still very much keeps close tabs on the group of friends that she left behind in Manhattan, which includes various moguls, heirs, power divorcees, business leaders, and fashion designers. And, as can happen in the relatively insular world of New York society, Birch's alleged comments made their way to Trump soon after she returned to Washington, D.C. given the various headaches and distractions concurrently facing the Trump administration, staff upheaval, the mounting Robert Mueller investigation, another looming government shutdown, botched Obamacare appeal efforts. The alleged Birch comments could have been disregarded as a trivial affair. But, like her father, Ivanka Trump can be sensitive about criticism, particularly of the trivial variety. She did not forget the remarks, and it got to the point where a White House official spoke about the situation with Birch, according to people close to Ivanka, who were perplexed that she cared deeply about something that no one in her position ought to care about. These are some of the most powerful people in the world. I mean literally, one person who knows both Ivanka and Birch told me. And this warranted any kind of attention. You've got to be kidding. A White House official said that Ivanka wasn't aware of the outreach until after it took place. Doe at the W20 Summit, Berlin, April 2017. For a decade since she joined the Trump Organization and began appearing on The Apprentice, Ivanka Trump has largely portrayed herself as a more palatable simulacrum of her father. It's a role that she has tried to perfect in the White House. In public, both on trips abroad and while appearing on Fox News, or while addressing a town hall on an issue within her portfolio, Trump comes across as articulate and thoughtful. Friends described the private Ivanka as surprisingly normal, someone who likes to gossip and swears like a sailor. But she is also susceptible to many of the weaknesses that characterize her father. Ivanka is an unabashed striver and politica, with a preternatural talent for self-promotion and a deep conviction that many rules don't apply to her. For Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, her husband and fellow White House advisor, the decision to uproot their comfortable New York lives to enter the unknown of Donald Trump's administration was always about business, about the understanding that connections forged in the swamp could benefit careers upon return to the private sector. In some ways, after all, it was a continuation of how they had both always lived their lives, leveraging the parents' successes to further their own opportunities. They're used to a lot of things coming easy, one friend noted. It's not that they didn't work hard, or that they weren't smart. But their last names have always been the thing. 1 year later, it hasn't quite worked out that way. As Ivanka begins her second official year in D.C., she can point to successes such as her role in the administration's tax reform bill, her work to expand the child care tax credit, an increasingly fat Rolodex of world leaders, and the various bipartisan dinners that she and Kushner have hosted at their Kalorama home. According to one friend, the couple decided to host the dinners after they realized how few lawmakers in D.C. lived in actual homes. Trump relishes her role in the White House but keeps close tabs on the friends she left behind. But these accomplishments have been subsumed by the administration's manifold quagmires: the botched Muslim ban, Charlottesville, Twitter insults, petty nicknames, West Wing infighting, the Russia investigation. Ivanka's integrity as a champion for women's issues, meanwhile, has been diminished amid her father's dismissal of his various sexual lasso accuses, alleged payoffs to a porn star and a playmate, and his decision to stick up for a staffer who allegedly abused his former wives rather than to express sympathy for his accusers. In late February, Ivanka Trump attempted to castigate an interviewer for asking about her father's alleged sexual transgressions under the guise that it was inappropriate to ask a daughter such things. Left unsaid, however, it was the unavoidable point. While Trump often seems to outrun his own bad press, even his most appalling debacles, his daughter does not possess the same immunity. Many of the rules do apply to her. As a former friend put it to me, now their names are kind of the downfall. Trump and Kushner's descent into Washington has proved far more chilling than even many of the critics anticipated. In fact, even some of the most committed supporters appear to be taking a step back. In the fall of 2017, Josh Kushner, Jared's younger brother, was in touch with The Charlie Rose Show. Throughout the campaign, many in the media speculated about what Josh, a venture capitalist who runs Oscar, a healthcare company predicated on the Affordable Care Act, might think of the fact that his brother was working in an administration that intended to dismantle Obamacare. Now Josh seemed ready to answer the question. According to people familiar with his thinking, Josh Kushner was set to sit down with Rose to come out as a Democrat. The Kushner family has long supported liberal candidates, an implicit step back from the values perpetuated by the Trump administration, which included his brother and sister-in-law. In November, however, Rose was fired after several women came forward alleging sexual harassment and workplace misconduct. Josh Kushner's sit-down had yet to be taped. Full-screen photos behind the scenes of Ivanka's first year in Washington meeting the Pope, May 2017. Photo from Abaca leaving Joint Base Andrews. Photo by Kevin Lamarck, Reuters. Photo from AP Images Rec Shutterstock. At the Western Wall, May 2017. Photo by Heidi Lavina, P. Images. At the W20 Summit, Berlin, April 2017. Photo by Marcus Schreiber, P. Images. With Kushner in Washington, D.C., January 2018. Photo copyright Tony Powell. Trump in Hyderabad, November 2017. Photo by Carl McNaughton, Reuters. Last April, barely a month into her job, I met Ivanka Trump in a room at the Hotel Intercontinental in Berlin. I was traveling among the pool of reporters on hand to cover her first trip abroad as part of the new administration, a panel appearance with Angela Merkel, Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. It was Trump's initial foray into international relations, and she seemed undaunted by the challenge. In a floral print Michael Kors dress and Ivanka Trump pumps, she poured herself some hot water and lamented her inability to sleep on the overnight flight. She apologized for her voice, which was hoarse. I definitely sound more sultry, she said, though her public voice is typically already a whisper. Having not slept much myself, I joked that she might be able to use her sotto voce to start some sort of side hustle. You mean as a phone sex operator? She deadpanned. That is what I intimated, but would not have fully articulated to a first daughter, a White House official. She gamely did it for me. It was the sort of disarming rejoinder her father could have made. That's who she is. The long-standing friend of Trump's told me when I recalled the story, adding that she is largely funnier and less self-serious than most people assume. It's a generally unobserved point because, in part, Trump is so intently focused on her professional life. Like her father, Ivanka prefers to work with her own people, to play her own game, no matter the protocol. Soon after the couple arrived in the West Wing, Kushner would FaceTime with old friends to effectively recruit them to work in the administration. One friend repeatedly reminded him that FaceTime was not the most secure form of communication. They were successful in recruiting Reed Cordish, a Baltimore real estate heir who was introduced to his wife by Ivanka, to join as an assistant to the president focused on infrastructure. The couple also brought on Josh Raffel, who years earlier had performed public relations services alongside Hope Hicks for the companies of both Ivanka and Jared, to do the West Wing media bidding. Both Raffel and Hicks announced in late February that they would be stepping down from their jobs. Ivanka hired Dina Powell away from Goldman Sachs. She resigned at the end of the year and recently announced she was returning to the investment bank. In doing so, they effectively set up their own faction within the West Wing, a kids' table foil to the adult daycare center run by Steve Bannon, Reince Priebus, and now John Kelly, among others, who, unsurprisingly, viewed them as a nuisance, if not a threat. Washington is by nature a transactional place. But at times Trump's and Kushner's political impulses have seemed aimed more at the New York constituency than at the administration. Colleagues in the West Wing told me they were furious that the duo attended the annual Allen Company Media Mixer in Sun Valley, where they hung out with James Murdoch and some of the Manhattan Circle. The decision to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem was greeted with protests around the globe, but Kushner's role in the process was cheered in certain precincts of the northeastern modern Orthodox community. The guy was a hero. One person who attended the White House Hanukkah party shortly after the decision told me. There were a lot of handshakes and pats on the back. Ivanka invited some of her childhood friends and New York social pals to a separate White House holiday party, and they took a tour of the residence alongside the first daughter, who was stopped at every turn by revelers looking for a selfie with her. But other friends were turning away. Shortly before the Tory Burch incident, Trump and Kushner's friends openly talked about why the couple's names had not appeared on the final guest list for the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Halloween party, co-hosted by Wendy Murdoch, a close friend. Murdoch declined to comment. The couple also appeared to turn insular. During the heat of Trump's campaign in August 2016, they decamped to the Adriatic with Wendy Murdoch aboard billionaire businessman David Geffen's yacht. This past summer, they took a Trump Organization helicopter to Vermont for a 2-day vacation. For Ivanka's 36th birthday, in October, Jared threw a surprise dinner at the Trump Hotel in Washington, attended largely by members of their immediate family and the Trump administration. "We wanted to protect them," the old New York friend told me recently, as I've previously reported, referring to his admonitions to the couple before they left for D.C. "But you can't protect people when they're voluntarily sticking the head into the fucking guillotine." Ivanka defends her father publicly, but privately it is Kushner she sticks up for. In truth, friends and acquaintances were already pulling back from the couple during the campaign. What was the upside of getting entangled in all the talk about Mexicans being rapists and the boasting about grabbing people by the genitals? Some members of Congregation Kehilath Jeshurun on East 85th Street started a petition to stop Rabbi Haskell Lookstein, who had overseen Ivanka's conversion to Judaism, from giving a blessing before the Republican National Convention in Cleveland over the summer of 2016. The whole matter turned from rabbinic to political, something which was never intended, he wrote in an email to members of his community. Politics divides people. Many of the community members and friends who initially distanced themselves from the couple assumed it would be temporary. Trump wasn't going to win the election, and soon enough they could forget that the campaign ever happened. It played out differently, of course. Temporary fractures became more permanent. In an interview with Forbes, Kushner announced his own purge of people who had dropped the couple over the politics, a process he deemed exfoliation. Ivanka dealt with the slights in her own way, strategically sticking to issues that dovetailed with her women-focused lifestyle brand, so that the stench of the rest of the campaign wouldn't cling to her after the election, and tuning out all the noise in the meantime. She has a high conviction in what she's going to try to achieve while she's there, and an understanding that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, the long-standing friend of Ivanka's recently told me. If she can move any needle, all the other stuff falls to the wayside. For a brief moment, that seemed plausible. After the Trump's unlikely tax reform victory, a person close to Ivanka Trump told me that she was fully emboldened. She and Jared headed to Mar-a-Lago during Christmas, feeling a renewed sense of opportunity and perhaps also relief that they had put a recent series of scandals, such as the Roy Moore fiasco, behind them. But the enthusiasm was short-lived. In early January, Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury portrayed Trump as a quasi-senile Falstaff overseeing a court in open revolt. Then came renewed West Wing tensions, the Stormy Daniels controversy, Karen McDougal, Trump's comments about arming teachers, and the decision by Rick Gates, his former campaign and transition aide, to cooperate with Robert Mueller. For someone whose name has always been her thing, there was only one direction to pivot home. Initially, after Charlottesville, many friends expected that Trump and Kushner would pack up and return to New York before the 2017 school year. By the fall, an idea was floated within the circle that Ivanka might soon return for an honorary job at the UN. And Jared could assume a position on the re-election committee, a theory that was reinforced when Ivanka expressed pleasure at what they had already accomplished and Kushner ally Brad Parscale took a job on Trump's re-election campaign. Kushner also has urgent business to attend to. His family business is facing increasing pressure regarding 666 Fifth Avenue, its over-leveraged asset, whose $1.2 billion mortgage comes due next year. Now the current bet is that the Trump kushners will stay through May-June until school wraps up, if they can make it that far. What are they coming home to hear? The old friend told me recently. A bunch of people who haven't exactly been counting down the seconds since they've been gone. Of all Ivanka Trump's similarities to her father, perhaps the most evident is the effect of her childhood on her current disposition. Donald Trump, who grew up in Queens and attended military school, endeavored to make his name in Manhattan and has displayed an affinity for men in uniform. Ivanka Trump, meanwhile, has long shown the scars inflicted during her parents' divorce. Even before the divorce, Donald did nothing for the kids, one old friend of Ivanka and Donald Trump told me recently. When they were on vacations or on summer break, he had a habit of disappearing in the morning and not coming back until night. Another long-time associate of the family told me that he would often lament Donald Trump's parenting to his face. I would say, "Donald, would you even know if your kids were in Europe?" And he wouldn't, because he didn't know when they were. Ivanka Trump's childhood was one of lonely privilege. Her parents essentially had very little to do with her, one classmate from Choate Rosemary Hall told me, referring to her as a fancy, latchkey kid. Another Choate classmate remembered that when she would stay with Ivanka in New York on weekends away from school, there was a tremendous amount of love and affection between her and the family's nannies, the housekeepers, the elevator attendants, and her maternal head mother. I asked if that extended to her relationship with her parents, and the classmate told me it was just a very different kind of love. In an interview with Britain's Mail on Sunday in 2000, a 19-year-old Ivanka revealed her own adolescent fears about marriage. "I never ever want to get divorced," she said. "I think I'm quite good at judging what people are like, and I could never be with someone whose motives I was constantly questioning. And I certainly couldn't stand worrying about whether he'd run off with the first blonde who came along once I got my first wrinkle." It's hard to square Ivanka Trump's insecurity with her defense of her father, given his alleged improprieties. But after covering Ivanka Trump for 2 years, I believe one explanation is that, like her father, she is, at her core, self-preserving. And in Kushner, Trump may have found the stability she craved. She certainly worked for it. The Kushners, who are practicing Orthodox Jews, struggled with the fact that Ivanka was not Jewish, and a year after the couple started dating, they broke up. They tell friends that it wasn't over the religion issue, though Ivanka Trump wrote in her memoir that her daughter had told her otherwise. Eventually, they reunited and Ivanka agreed to convert to Judaism under the supervision of Jared's father, Charles Kushner. With Rabbi Lookstein, whose shul is modern Orthodox, she studied the Torah, agreeing to observe Shabbos with Kushner's family and committing to learn Jewish laws and traditions. "She's such a perfectionist and takes everything, and herself, very seriously," a former close associate told me. "So when she says she's converting, she will read every book and learn every recipe and start participating with his family to do all the holidays." She was reportedly gifted a Swarovski crystal-encrusted leopard print mezuzah in celebration. Ivanka has undoubtedly spent years protecting and defending her father publicly, but privately it is Kushner she sticks up for, even to her father directly. One campaign official recently recalled a moment from the campaign when Ivanka burst into her father's office on the 26th floor of Trump Tower to advocate for her husband. "I need to talk to you," this person recalled her saying. "You don't give Jared the support he needs. He's left his business to be a part of this. You have no idea what he's sacrificing to be here and how hard he is working for you." Then it became personal. Ivanka told her father that his lack of appreciation hurt her and, notably, hurt her relationship with her husband. According to this campaign official, the elder Trump caved immediately. All right, this person recalled him saying. What does he want? Kushner may have provided Ivanka Trump with emotional security, but his family also offers another form of protection. Very few people have a real sense of how much Donald Trump is actually worth, an enigma reinforced by his refusal to release his tax returns. But long before he ran a presidential campaign, he ran a business into the ground a few times, reportedly borrowing $20 million from his family in order to avoid personal bankruptcy. Trump has denied borrowing from his family. His companies have declared bankruptcy 4 times. Ivanka grew up between a gilded triplex in Trump Tower and a 118-room waterfront mansion in Palm Beach, but, as one old friend of Ivanka's described those places to me, they're like living in very fancy corporate housing. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump enjoy lavish lifestyles, to be sure. But their lives are less public and extravagant, with weekends in upstate New York or Westchester, and vacations hunting in the Canadian bush. Ivanka and Jared live on Park Avenue, go out most nights, and vacation in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. The younger Trumps are rich, certainly, but they are not the Kushners. When the latest version of the couple's ethics disclosure was made public over the summer, it showed that they reported as much as $212 million in income since the beginning of 2016, with only about $12.6 million coming in from Ivanka, and the rest from Kushner. The combined net worth was estimated at as much as $761 million, according to the filing, with the bulk of that coming from his holdings. Josh Kushner's crisis of conscience may presage the events of Ivanka's next year in D.C. As Mueller's investigation narrows in on Trump's closest advisors, and closes in on answers to key questions, was there collusion with Kremlin agents? Was there obstruction of justice? The West Wing may soon become a zero-sum environment, pitting colleagues and, perhaps, even family members against one another. According to one longtime friend of the president, as I have previously reported, if it came down to Donald Trump saving himself or defending his son-in-law, there would be no hesitation. If you think he's going to tie himself to the kid, you don't know anything, this person said. If it's going to cost him his legacy, not a chance. According to one former Trump advisor, the president is keeping Kushner around, in part, because he fears letting him out of his sight, particularly if he gets indicted. Which invites the question, if Ivanka Trump had to choose between her husband and her father, what would she do? Global summits, ill-fated Instagram posts, sartorial mishaps, and the child tax credit. A detailed chronology of Ivanka Trump's year in Washington. January 29, 2017. Ivanka posts a photo of herself in a metallic one-shoulder gown, and her husband in a tuxedo, with his hand placed on her behind, before they attended a black-tie dinner in D.C. the weekend her father's so-called Muslim ban went into effect. February 2, 2017. After months of a customer boycott campaign and poor sales, Nordstrom announces it will drop Ivanka Trump's eponymous brand. March 29, 2017. The White House officially names Ivanka an advisor to the president, with her father saying in a statement that the administration was pleased that Ivanka Trump has chosen to take this step in her unprecedented role as first daughter. April 25, 2017. Ivanka sits on a panel with German Chancellor Angela Merkel at the W20 summit in Berlin, where she is met with groans from the audience. May 2, 2017. Her second book, Women Who Work, is released to universal pants and unimpressive sales. May 20, 2017. Ivanka joins her father on his 10-day trip abroad, greeting the Saudi royal family, privately praying at the Western Wall in Jerusalem, and meeting the Pope in Rome. July 8, 2017. Ivanka's decision to temporarily fill her father's seat on stage at the G20 summit in Hamburg, Germany, alongside world leaders, is derided as a sign that the Trumps are turning America into a banana republic. August 16, 2017. After the violence in Charlottesville, Jared and Ivanka fly off in a Trump Organization helicopter for a two-day golfing getaway in Vermont. November 3, 2017. During a trip to Tokyo, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe calls Ivanka one of the most remarkable people in the world. November 15, 2017. Weeks before her father endorses Roy Moore in the Alabama special election, Ivanka tells the Associated Press that there's a special place in hell for people who prey on children. November 28, 2017. She arrives in Hyderabad, India, at the Prime Minister's invitation, for a women's entrepreneurship summit, a whirlwind trip local media dub a royal visit. December 20, 2017. Congress passes tax reform legislation that includes an expanded child care tax credit that Ivanka lobbied for. February 26, 2018. In a televised interview following her trip to the Olympics, Ivanka tells NBC's Peter Alexander that it's inappropriate for him to ask her about the sexual abuse allegations against her father. Full-screen photos of Ivanka and Tiffany Trump's half-sister, actor ringleted, toe-headed toddler Tiffany Trump, drew both of her parents' attention in New York City. Photo by Catherine McGann, Getty Images. Ivanka with her father at the Plaza Hotel, 1991. Photo by Ron Gallawiremage. Ivanka with Donald at a Beach Boys concert in Palm Beach, 1996. Photo from Davidoff Studiosgetty. Images. A 6-year-old Tiffany Trump, with a checkered flamenco dress and gold fan, stood for a portrait at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach in 1999. Photo by Davidoff Studiosgetty. Images. Donald and Ivanka at a campaign rally in Manchester, New Hampshire, 2016. Photo by Suzanne Kreiterthe. Boston Globegety. Images. Ivanka Trump and Tiffany trade whispers across their sister-in-law, Lara, in the audience at the Republican National Convention this summer in Cleveland. Photograph by Justin Bishop. Tiffany Trump and Ivanka Trump outside the main doors of Donald Trump's penthouse at Trump Tower in Manhattan, 2014.